Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for True Show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for True Show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. Pleasure to welcome you back with us today on this very important holiday of the year, Memorial Day, where we remember and honor the men and women who died fighting for the liberty and freedom that we enjoy in this country. You know, and really when we think about it, we owe them tremendous debt, because we really, even though there are problems in the country, we still live in probably the best country in the world. And so I want to just give like a few seconds of silence for them. And thank you so much to all of you who gave your lives. Tonight we have a very interesting show, and it's a very new technology, something that I really wasn't too aware of. And I spoke to this expert, and a great man. He has 6 children, family man, you know, real guy. And we were discussing all this new technology. And so let me introduce him to you first by bringing up some pictures, Buddha, please, on the screen, of Mr. Dennis Hunter, a married father of 6, there you see him, an artificial intelligence expert, formerly of the U.S. Navy, and board member and director of cybersecurity, ED at RT Triad. Was a Verizon product manager, CompTIA instructor. He was a past Cisco cybersecurity director of StealthWatch and Cloud, and a Cisco product manager. There you see him in his outfit in the Navy. And he was also with CCNA Security and Red Hat. He received specialty training in what he does in IBM sales and management, Blade server technical training for 10 years, starting in 1998. And his Navy experience of advanced electronics back in 79. Then he was involved in Red Hat product management, Linux technical training from 2009 to 2013, Agile overview, Bugzilla process flow and browser interface. Mr. Hunter was also formerly with Cisco Networking Academy for 2019, and is the author of a manual on Linux for IBM. He's constantly teaching people, runs his own show, and loves to share what he knows, and is on the cutting edge of this artificial intelligence. And engineer, if you bring him up live, I want to bid a warm welcome to Mr. Dennis Hunter Rucker. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure making your acquaintance. Pleasure seeing you. Hey, doctor, how you doing?
Good to see
Good
you
to see
again.
you.
We had a great conversation the other day, and you really got my interest in all of this. And let's start with you first, though. So, what were your dreams when you were a young guy?
Getting out of Harlem. So, so my mother always wanted me to have a good education and then to use that good education to further myself as much as I could. So I went to private school my whole life. And my mother kept me in private school until I went to high school. I went to a military academy. I went to private school growing up. I went to pre-K. So I did that whole thing. But my dreams were always, I used to carry a book in my back pocket. My friends used to make fun of me because I always would carry books and read books, and I wanted to learn things. My kids used to make fun because they thought that the radio didn't work in my car because all they ever did is listen to talk radio. I listened to books and information. I said I will listen to music when Beyonce sends me a check.
Well, okay. And now, how did it turn out that you went into the Navy and you got into electronics? How did that happen?
If I could advise any of the young people out there that are
Yes.
eligible to join the United States military, I would say, first of all, now that I know what Space Force is, because I was in the Navy and the Air Force, but they now have something called Space Force. And if you think about it, Space Force doesn't fight anybody, right? There are no other opposing Space Force troops. You sit down at a computer and you do your 8 hours and you go home. So I would advise anyone, if you can, go give them people a couple of years, become a veteran, and I am in my upper 60s, and they're still doing stuff for me for the job I did when I was 19 years old. So
Very interesting. Well,
yeah, they gave me the basis of all my training. When I went in, I did a 6 year service, and for 4 of those 6 years, I was in a school of some sort.
interesting. And so that's where you started learning about electronics and the computers, and is that how that happened?
Yeah, so I went to what they called back then advanced electronics, and I went from just regular advanced electronics to advanced aviation electronics. And I was so if you've ever heard of the F-14, if you've ever heard of Top Gun, I was in the squadron that Top Gun flew against. So we would go and we would learn Warsaw Pact tactics, and then we would fly against Top Gun, and Top Gun would learn how to fight against our guys. I was in a squadron that was the professional adversaries for the West Coast, and our squadron was right next door to Top Gun.
Wow, that's very interesting. So, were you on an aircraft carrier?
Yeah, I have been on almost every aircraft carrier the United States Navy had. I started in the Navy. I only did one cruise in the Navy. When I got out, I went to work for the company that makes the airplanes for the Navy. And then I just did an unlimited number of cruises. I sailed the 7 seas. I went everywhere twice. The only place on Earth that I have not been is Antarctica.
Well, okay. And you saw those planes land on the aircraft carrier, huh?
That was my life.
That must be an amazing thing, huh?
It's something because I look at how the Navy is now, and back in those days, you can go up in the crow's nest, which is the top of the aircraft carrier, and I would sit up there at night and watch the planes come in and do what we call touch and go. And and it's funny because I had a little transistor radio back then, but the radar, every now and then you did with the radar going by your transistor radio. So I would sit out there and listen to music in the dark and watch the planes touch and go and listen to my radio. You could do that back then. I don't know if they would let them do that these days.
Yeah, those different days back then. So tell our viewers how, with your experience, because you've had so much with computers, with internet, I saw your lengthy biography, and with artificial intelligence and advanced programming. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of bring us up to speed, because someone like me and most of our viewers, we don't really know much about this.
Okay, so as I said, when I left the Navy, I went to work for Grumman Aerospace, and I was a GS-11 tech rep for Grumman Aerospace with the Navy, and it had top security clearance and all that. So we got to the end of the Cold War, and they started laying everyone off. So I figured, oh, I've got to find a real job. And I got into computers and electronics, and I came here, and I used to be a hacker, and IBM caught me hacking, and instead of sending me to jail, they gave me a job. Now, this was back in the 90s. It would be different now. They really frown upon it now. But back then, like, we were demigods because we knew how to work computers. So IBM was great. I started off in the help center. They sent me around the world. I visited, I trained people in Linux. So I was a big Linux advocate. And then it's funny because I was big into Linux, and I wrote a book for IBM on Linux and clusters. And then IBM turned around and ended up buying Red Hat, which Red Hat sold Linux.
Now, let me just stop you for a second, because some people are as ignorant as I am. What is Linux, first of all, before you continue?
Do you have an Android phone?
Yes.
So if you have an Android phone, the operating system that runs the Android operating system is a derivative of Linux. So Linux is what we call an open source operating system. It started off running on servers, and then once we get it run, it's kind of a Unix-like operating system. And its biggest thing is that it's open source, so that anybody can download and use Linux. And that was the big driving thing about it, is that it was open source. We were part of the open source, revolution. And now almost everything uses some part of Linux or some part of open source. You see it everywhere now.
I see. Now, what is Red Hat?
So Red Hat was a company that sold the Linux software. And it's funny because we started off selling a box version of Linux, but we transitioned later where I was in the room with a guy, and I thought he was crazy when he said this. He said that we are going to sell free software. And a couple of $1 billion later, obviously he was right, and I didn't understand. So we sold basically free software, but the way we did it is, if you think about it, I can give you all the parts in the automobile for free, and I can put them on your front porch. And I can say, here are all the parts, it is for free, build your car. Or you can pay me as a consultant, and I will tell you how to put this together. And that's where we made our money, was consulting people on how to use the operating system. We'd give you the operating system for free. But now if you want to know how to use it and how to optimize it, you would pay us for consulting.
Very, very, very smart marketing. So you know what? I know we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, and you sent me a great video. So Buddha, if you will, let's put on the video that we got from Mr. Hunter. This way we'll bring all the viewers up to speed on artificial intelligence, and then I'm going to ask you the next question on how you started being involved with this. So let's put that video on, engineer.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. Chatbots, we've all heard of them, right? They suck, and they're a joke. But what if they actually worked and could understand and answer anything you asked of it? Imagine having a program that can give you investment research, generate and debug code, create a Twitter bot for you when you have no knowledge of coding, create a weight loss plan, be a personal assistant, mental health support, marketing SEO strategist, write movie scripts, essays, and much more. This is now a reality thanks to ChatGPT, a program released on the 30th of November 2022. Long story short, ChatGPT has the potential to turn the work of one man into the productivity of 10 men. What does this mean for the world and society as a whole? In this episode, we'll dive deep into all of that and also give some wild examples of how this AI is being used today. If you're a budding entrepreneur wondering what the next big thing is, you might want to stick around for this one, because OpenAI's CEO has some pretty interesting insight into the future of all industry.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
ChatGPT is a large language model created by OpenAI. Since the company's inception in 2015, we've covered many achievements by them, the latest of which was the image generator DALL-E 2. In 2019, OpenAI raised $1 billion from Microsoft and currently have a valuation of $20 billion. Since its release, ChatGPT has become an internet phenomenon. In just 5 days, it crossed 1 million users. For comparison, Netflix took 41 months, Facebook 10 months, Instagram 2.5 months. It's very clear that the ability to ask open-ended questions about any topic and receiving a response that isn't hand-coded has a clear market with virtually unlimited demand.
Very interesting. So, leads me to my next question. Tell us how you got involved with artificial intelligence. We'll go step by step.
Okay, well, again, being a hacker, I've always been interested in new technology. And although my job is cybersecurity and being a product manager, I never lost my interest in new things. So what got me really interested in AI and in ChatGPT is this young, and I think I told you the story, this young gentleman in sub-Saharan Africa. This is about how you make money with ChatGPT. This young gentleman in sub-Saharan Africa, the only thing he had was a flip phone, not even a smartphone. He had a flip phone. And when ChatGPT first came out, he asked ChatGPT to write a book about itself for him. Now, this young man with no resources and only a flip phone was able to get ChatGPT to write a book. Now, remember, he doesn't have enough memory in his flip phone to download the book. So he sends it to Amazon to have them print the book for him at $29.95. This is in the beginning when ChatGPT had less than 1 million users. ChatGPT now has over 100 million users.
Amazing.
That is a market that his $29 book sells into. Ask me if that gentleman's life is better.
Amazing. Okay, and so now, so what are the upsides? Because obviously everything has an upside and a negative side. Let's first go, what are the upsides of artificial intelligence?
Well, the scary thing is that the sky is the limit on here. Artificial intelligence has a lot of different spheres. One sphere that we work with is the chat box, the ChatGPT. This is when you talk to it and it responds to you. But also we have where you can talk to it and it creates pictures. Now, you've been interfaced with artificial intelligence for a long time and probably not knowing it. Because when you interface with, say, Alexa or Siri, that is artificial intelligence. Back when Microsoft was doing Clippy, that was artificial intelligence. It's just that artificial intelligence has become much better. So a lot of us that might call into a company and go into a phone automation, okay? That phone automation is artificial intelligence that they're running from the company. So artificial intelligence is growing in so many ways and touching so many things. When Tesla's car is able to drive itself, that's artificial intelligence.
Okay. And you run a course on this, right?
Yes. Every Saturday on Meetup, it's called What is ChatGPT? And just look up ChatGPT out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and you'll find and I run it for free. So
Okay.
the growth on it has been amazing. When I started with 2 people. I now have several hundred, and
Beautiful. And
that's
now,
just
so now, what happens so that the viewers know and they can, go to your course and learn? What is it that goes on with your course? What do you try to concentrate on?
well. The first most important thing on the course is I tell all my students that I am not your instructor. I'm your facilitator. And in being a facilitator, I use my open source model of how I learned open source. So what I do is I invite all of my students to go out each week and learn something about ChatGPT, and then they bring it back, and we're using the wisdom of the crowd. They bring back what they've learned, and we discuss what they've learned. And the great thing is, I tell people, no matter your level of knowledge, you still have a place at the table. Because if you know nothing at all about technology or ChatGPT, you can ask a question, and you can lead one of our shows by just asking a question in which we'll respond to your question. That would be the presentation. You come up and say, I don't know what ChatGPT is, and then we'll tell you. So it's really open source. It's really everyone has a seat at the table, but it's because I realized when ChatGPT came out that no one person could know everything about this. And the way to attack this is that we need to build an army, right? Because trust me, the other guys, the big guys, have armies of lawyers and scientists and whatnot to figure this out. But the same way that we beat them with Linux is how we beat them with this. We may not be able to employ a bunch of engineers, but we can employ a bunch of smart people and people that want to try and use the wisdom of the crowd to be as good, if not better than they are. And to show you, to underline how good that is, at the core of chatbot is something they call LMM. That LLM. That's a large language model. It's software. Now, we're used to the software, the underlying large language model that, say, OpenAI has, and also Google has one. So each of them have their own, and GPT-3 and GPT-4 are large language models. So OpenAI has one that they run ChatGPT on, and Google has one that they run, I think, Bard on. Okay, but they underlying them, their center is that large language model. Well, guess what? There's an open source large language model, and the open source large language model, anybody can download, anybody can use. For now, notice I said for now because the big companies, Google, IBM, OpenAI, and many other companies, Facebook, are getting worried that the large language model and the open source is working better than theirs is. Now, why do you think that the open source one will work better than the one that the companies are paying for?
Tell us.
Because the companies have a limit on number of engineers that they have on staff. That's why Linux won against IBM. IBM can only hire so many developers. But when you took it to an open source model, these are people that are volunteering their time and volunteering their input all around the world. So it was the number of people that IBM could hire versus all of the open source people on the planet Earth. And that's why Linux won in the end.
Interesting. But now, why would these people work for free? Explain that.
Credit. What it is that, so when I was a product manager for Linux, right?
Yes.
We would have different projects. So we might have a project that says writing labels on the side of the box, right? And for cred, people that were programmers that knew how to program on their off time would write little snippets of code to this open source thing, because open source is like a spiritual movement. It's a revolution against the closed system that society has. So when in the start of the century, a capitalist would borrow money and he would go and build a factory, and then he would give you a job in that factory, and that's how you got a job back in the 1900s. Well, think about it. Before that, we were all itinerant farmers. We worked on our own farm. We didn't go to industry to get a job. We woke up and our job was right there where we lived.
Right.
So this is a movement of a bunch of people trying to bring the means of production back to the average person.
Very interesting. So let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to interject into when you're talking, but it brings something right out that's so important to ask you. So how do we maintain the integrity of what you're saying so it doesn't get monopolized or taken over and withdrawn for the benefit of just some few?
Well, that was the concern with Linux. There's something called an open source license. So the open source license says you can have the whole code base for Linux. But number one, you have to give credit to the people you got it from. Number two, if you add something to it, you have to give that back to the community. So you can have your own version of Linux and sell it. We don't care. But you can't make it closed source for just you. Part of the license says you have to give it away freely to the next person just as freely as you got it.
Okay, but then how does another question that comes to mind, how do we control the integrity of what's coming back on the artificial intelligence? Because if it's so open, you talked about you were a hacker yourself, why couldn't someone hack into artificial intelligence, just that alone, and create some problem so that the people who got their questions got the wrong answer while they who hacked in got the right answer, so that they could be the benefit while the other ones lost just only by the fact that they didn't know?
Have you ever heard of Wikipedia?
Yes.
So a lie can get spread and planted on Wikipedia, but it doesn't live long because again, the wisdom of the crowd. Many people, and this is with the code, right? When you put code back in there, many people that know about code are looking at it, and they're going to say, "Oh, this is garbage. This is doing a bad thing," and everyone can see that. So, for the same reason, you can go to Wikipedia and be relatively sure, right, that the information you're getting is relatively decent because so many people are looking at it, and so many people have a chance to comment on it, that the wisdom of the crowd spread across all of us helps to keep it good.
Well, you know what? I want to thank you for being on the show. There's a lot more. We started just to get into some of the important aspects of it. And I know we could have another show. We'll have to have another one in the future. But I want to thank you for being on the show, Dennis.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to seeing you again. And I hope some of you people show up in my class at a meetup on Saturday at 11 o'clock.
Absolutely. And is it just basically they just look for your name or what?
Yeah, look for ChatGPT in Raleigh, North Carolina.
You got it. Okay, and for those of you out there, enjoy your Memorial Day, and we will see you on the next episode of A Time for Truth show. Good night.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep at your feet.